Hi everyone, welcome back to the Web3 channel. My name is Zach. In this video, we're looking at ENS. Former ENS Director of Ops remains at Foundation after voting against his own removal. In this video, as far as I'm concerned, we're going to be looking at a level of corruption that is laughably stupid that has actually been allowed in the ENS community. Of course, looking at the Ethereum name service community. For all the talk about the credible neutrality and building infrastructure, this would have been the time to abstain, but he chose self-preservation, says Eric Hu, a member of the DAO. Some of you will remember we spoke about Brantly Millegan. He'll be staying on as the director of the ENS Foundation after casting more than 363,000 votes against a DAO proposal to remove him. According to a tally of roughly 3.7 million ENS DAO votes recorded at the end of the voting period on March 5th, more than 1.6 million were against removing Millegan as director of the ENS Foundation. 43.39% of the vote, more than 698,000 votes abstained from the proposal, while roughly 1.4 million votes were in favor of Millegan's removal. 19.1% and 37.51% respectively. The controversial ENS vote that ended Saturday, broken down by delegated voting power, reposted as there was an error at first. However, many DAO users noted that Millegan used more than 363,000 tokens to vote against his own removal, which tipped the total in his favor. Many of the votes were delegated by the DAO users prior to the controversy that precipitated the vote, in which Millegan stood by his tweets he posted in May 2016 with anti-LGBTQIA+ statements, including homosexual acts are evil and transgenderism doesn't exist. The former ENS Director of Ops said the tweets were in accordance with his Catholic faith. Ultimately, Brantly chose not to abstain from this vote and voted against his neutralism either. He falls short even of his own ideals. For all the talk about credible neutrality and building infrastructure, this would have been the time to abstain, but he chose self-preservation. This infrastructure is too crucial for what could be the next chapter of the internet. Regardless of his beliefs, he's just exhibited bad leadership in an already contentious space, which satisfies grounds for removal already. The horrible politics has merely revealed the bad fit. Some claim that the DAO governance model was flawed when dealing with a decision affecting its leadership, while ENS founder and developer Nick Johnson announced on February 7 that TNL, the non-profit behind ENS, had terminated his contract as Director of Ops. He voted in the DAO to abstain with the roughly 253,000 tokens he controlled. Brantly voting is a clear conflict of interest if he votes on his behalf of his delegates. In this case, his delegates should have voted as themselves. Directors voting on their own removal is completely broken and what some would call as corruption. In this, we're having a look at the thread itself. There's still a few hours left on this vote. This was posted 5 days ago. And it's been extremely frustrating to see how voting on this has played out. Some more thoughts. Firstly, Brantly voting is a clear conflict of interest, which we have looked at. How is it possible to remove a director in this way if directors end up having outside delegations and voting themselves? This gets worse when other directors for potential directors abstain from voting based on their own ethics. Even if you believe directors can vote in their own dismissal, as director of very important information, you must know how bad the optics of this looks like. That in itself should make you inadequate as a candidate. Secondly, this very contested vote is indicative of how troubling a candidate Brantly is. He should be self-aware of this conflict and resign. ENS is and will be a very important, and his continued directorship puts the future of ENS in jeopardy. Thirdly, I see a lot of people arguing the vote against as a buff against cancel culture. This is the wrong way to look at it, and is a key example of status quo bias. The better question is, if you had multiple candidates before you, would you hire Brantly as a director today? To me, it's an obvious no. They are better people to take that key role. Hiring Brantly into this role would be a key risk and not viable. I'm not saying Brantly is a bad person, and no one with his views should be a part of ENS. He just isn't fit to lead in such an important role when he publicly promotes these views. Lastly, if Brantly wins today, how does it look like for the future of ENS, for the marginalized groups that he targeted? What will be done? Who will be responsible for the bad optics that will come? It places unfair onus on other directors, as Brantly has shown he won't back down. To be honest, losing faith in these types of governance systems, for not sure this scales. If Ethereum and ENS is going going where it's heading. I'm not sure this type of governance is mature enough to handle this. Still support ENS and hope the vote reveals what it needs to reveal. Full transparency, delegates to Chief 256 and support their remote for removal. That being said, others, including ENS co-founder Alex Van der Sande, argue that users had plenty of opportunity to redelegate their votes prior to the proposal for Millegan's removal. However, some reported issues with transaction failures when they tried to change their delegation settings. At the time of publication, it's unclear if Millegan has commented on the vote, but there has been no new activity on the Twitter account since the suspension on February 5th, which I don't get the suspension thing. I've been able to see his account this entire time. I don't see how he was suspended. Maybe for a minute he was, or maybe half an hour. But as far as I can see, he's never been suspended. I am disappointed to see many other delegates talk themselves into circles about neutrality, said Jeff Coleman. Accepting or even endorsing an unjust status quo is not neutrality. I think we can and should do better. That being said, looking at the proposal itself, so short removal of Brantly Millegan as director of the ENS Foundation, and then we can see right here, looking at the votes, that the top number of votes that we can see here comes from Brantly himself, obviously using delegated votes. If this isn't corruption, I do not know what is. And I'll say this now, that in general, Web3 is absolutely decentralized by technology. Web3 is not decentralized by governance. It's not. Humans centralize. And that is what was chosen. The fact is that Brantly has used his own power to keep himself in power. And if that's not concerning, I don't know what is. But what I do know is that this will not take a break, and the ENS will feel this over time. And over time, when, of course, we see more and more of Web3 move into institutional adoption, the questions will be there. How does this all work? Who is in charge? And where does this go? And my guess is that it's not going anywhere positive when it comes to voting, when it's as easily corruptible as this. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. This is not specifically about Brantly's views, which I oppose either way. This is about a director being able to keep himself in power whilst the rest of the community, or at least the majority of the community via votes, has said that they do not want them there. I don't know how else to say it, but as far as I'm concerned, when you have a leader keeping themselves in power, regardless of the community votes, there's something happening there. With that being said, what are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments below. Would love to hear your take. This is the Web3 channel, covering everything happening in the Web3 space, from crypto, NFT, and metaverse news. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you in the next Web3 video.